All right, so I just need to move this one. Hi, thanks for joining. Thank you for joining. Thanks. So I have Rita with me this afternoon. I'm sorry, we Hi, how are you? Hi, Aubrey, how are you? Thanks so much. Oh my goodness, thanks for joining. I've been talking about this special broadcast for a while now, and I have Rita with me here in the house. Let's move our. We are trying to do our technical stuff here. It's been a little bit kind of. At first, it looked nice. Okay, Rita, come. They don't need to see much. Me, they've been seeing me. They need to see you.
Where are you
So,
introducing?
thank you.
Rita Apollo? No, I said
Rita Apollo, yes.
You introduced
So,
yourself.
hello, thank you. It's about 2:09 or 2:08 in the afternoon in Minnesota. And I've been telling you about this special broadcast. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. I've been talking to you about this special broadcast this afternoon on human trafficking in the immigrant community, and I have a special guest that I wanted you guys to meet. Her name is Rita Apollo, and Rita has thanks for sharing it on Facebook. So Rita is a communication strategist, and she works with people of different backgrounds, and she focuses on training people in the immigrant community about the issue of domestic abuse and human trafficking. And she has been using the book Imprisoned a lot. So what I told you that I have special gift for you today. So I'll be giving free copies of my book out at some point in this broadcast. But Rita is going to be talking to us about how she uses the book to do training in order to help people who come in contact with victims of human trafficking in the immigrant community or domestic abuse, or for those who are victims themselves to be able to reach out for help. So please join me to welcome Rita.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm happy to be Bukola's guest today. As she said, I do trainings and programs in the immigrant community, and it's around sexual health, sexual and reproductive health, which includes healthy relationships, which includes things like domestic violence and intimate partner violence and that kind of stuff. So I've been knowing Bukola long before we go way back.
Yes.
And but so let me just tell you a little bit about the program first. We have, like I say, is around sexual and reproductive health. We want to make sure that the individuals have medically accurate and culturally relevant information around these topics. And then also that the participants have skills and confidence in making informed decisions. We want to make sure that they view themselves as leaders in the community and individuals who can share their medically accurate information with their family, their friends, and other people in the community. And also
Thanks for joining.
And also we also want them to connect themselves and their families and friends to the services that they need to be healthy, and also to if they need some resources to be safe. So that includes knowing where to go if you are in a situation like domestic violence or human trafficking, and also how to recognize some of those signs and symptoms of things like that. So it's the African immigrant community, and it's mostly female, but we do have some males in the class, and age range is somewhere from early 20s all the way up to 50s and over sometime. And many of them are either born in Africa or and immigrated to the U.S., or We've had people who are born here, but part of the immigrant community as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rita. You've heard about her work in the community. And the reason I invited her today is because some of you know that I authored a book that chronicled my own experience as a victim and survivor of human trafficking. And this is the book that Rita is holding. And this book, a lot of people have used it and it has helped them. People are using it in the classroom. My friend who just joined this is my sister and her friend. Wow, nice. Thanks for joining. Thank you. So, and you are free to ask your questions as we go, please, because the reason why we are doing this broadcast is to start sensitizing the immigrant community more, especially because we found out that victims do not speak up in the immigrant community as a result of fear. Most of all, sometimes it's fear of deportation. So when a crime is being committed against them, they are afraid to speak up because they are already being threatened by immigration, meaning the trafficker or the abuser is using immigration to hold them down. But we want people to know that help is available regardless of your immigration status. If you are a victim of human trafficking or domestic abuse in the United States, you can get help. So using my book, Rita has been using this book for trainings, and I wanted her to tell you all how she's been using the book, how useful this book has been to her and the people she's been training. So can you first of all, why did you choose to use this book for training? Where would you send someone who is abused by facing immigration issues? They are in Florida. Okay, please can you ask that person to contact me and I will try to find help for the person, or you give me the person's information. Send me a private message. Send me a private message. I'm Bukola Oriola on Facebook. So you want to look for the Bukola Oriola Facebook public figure page and send me a message. Or you want to send me a message on Twitter. I'm also Bukola Oriola. So please send me private messages. If you have questions like that kind of a person, yes, please send me message and I can connect that person with help. And we can see how part of what we do right now, we are the Anyton Story. If you look behind us, is Anyton Story. It's a non-profit organization that works with victims and survivors of human trafficking and domestic abuse. So part of what we do at the organization is to refer for help, because we have people contacting us from different places. So we can connect them with help in their local community. So please send me message, private message, please, for that person. She can get help. So, Rita, why did you decide to use this book?
Well, first of all, I decided to use the book because it works well to get the people to relate to the story. So first, I read the book myself, and it's an incredible book. I just want to say thank you for writing up this book, because many times it's really hard to tell, for a person to tell their own story about things like human trafficking or anything that's sort of horrible. I did not have not experienced any of that in anything close. So when I read the book, the first thing that happened was it was very uncomfortable for me, and I had to reread it in order to start really processing it. But I use this book because, like I said, I work with immigrants, predominantly African immigrants, but a lot of other people as well. And I feel like the book, it touches on a lot of different topics. So I teach sexual and reproductive health. So this human trafficking story has lots of the topics that we talk about. For example, it addresses cultural and traditional practices that sometimes can put people in situations where they have negative and unhealthy relationships. It also talks about things like family, friendship, how we trust people, and sometimes they give us bad advice in terms of reaching out for help. And then it talks about relationship in families as well. again, we trust our family members, and sometimes in the culture, certain people have the authority to advise us in a certain ways. So it talk about that childbearing expectations, which is across cultures as well for women, and then things like expectations in terms of spouse. When you get married, what's your role? How the person might see your role in a relationship versus how you see it yourself. It talks about gender power and privilege in a marriage. The male, usually in many cultures, including the American culture now, have that power and privilege in a lot of situations, and they can either use it in a good way or a bad way. And then there's a lot of medical things that's in this book. Making sure people are healthy, going for things like prenatal care and what the system looks like. So lots of things in the book that pertains to what I already teach about. Also, this is a true story. This is a story that people can relate to, especially people in my class. We all know that when we talk about stories, sometimes it helps us to sort of get in the head of the storyteller. Experience things that the storyteller is experiencing in a way that if somebody were just to give us an example, it wouldn't work really well. They also, I think we're really lucky that we live where Bukola lives. Mm-hmm. So then I can also bring her in the classroom for people to ask questions. We can have Q&A. And many of the people that I teach, they don't have the opportunity to meet with authors or, people who are like them, who have written stories about themselves. And so this is an incredible experience for them. And then it also provides information on how people can get help. And that is another way that people sort of can see all the different, because Bukola lists what labor trafficking is and that kind of stuff. And so they can look at this and say, oh, I can actually get help if this is happening to me because I know somebody who did and somebody who's in the same situation or has the same background as me. So that's the reason why I've been using the book, and it's been a tremendous help, and it just sort of goes well with everything else we're doing.
Yes, so you've been using the book for, is it about a year now?
Yeah, it's over a year now.
Over a year now
a
that
little
you've been
over a
using
year.
the book.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of responses have you gotten from the students that have come across the book in your classes?
Well, first, it's really, I think they haven't heard a story of abuse in this kind of way. Sometimes, especially if we're not really close to people, we might tell a story and leave some things out.
Yes.
So, and you are really, in telling this story, you really talk about some really intimate details and that kind of stuff. And so they are usually really surprised that that you are saying these things out, writing it for other people to read. And sometimes I also get, I know this stuff happens to people, but I didn't know it was a crime, or I didn't know it was labor trafficking, or I didn't know, that our culture could actually lead people in the wrong direction. And so we talk about a lot of cultural practices and traditions, and which is great because we teach factual things, but that's just what it is. People love learning. They love learning new information. But when we start breaking it down to, okay, so how does this relate to our everyday life? Then that's when the discussion comes up and it's really real to them.
Oh, thanks. So you are listening to Rita Apalo. Thank you so much, Rita, for joining us on Periscope this afternoon to talk about the imprisoned book and how you have been using it to train in order to give help to victims of human trafficking and domestic abuse in the immigrant community in Minnesota. And before I continue, I would like to thank all web viewers, because I do know that some people join us via the web. So thank you so much for joining. And those who come back to do replay, I would like to thank you too for coming back for the replay. This information you are getting here is very valuable. If you know someone that needs help, please refer them for help. And I'm going to announce the first free gift. So now, with the message I got from one of you about somebody needing help in Florida, please contact me. I'm going to be giving a free copy of my book to that person in Florida. So please send me a private message on Facebook. I'm Bukola Oriola. So you want to look for the Bukola Oriola public Facebook page, please, and send me a message. I will be glad to send a free copy to that person in Florida. So Rita, you've also used this book in form of, like, will I call it like a play, or play like you created scenes from the book? So
Yeah.
what prompted that?
Well, one of the way that works for adults that's learning is to have some actual activities and hands-on. It has to be interactive. And so I have found ways to not only engage them in terms of, first, I just want to go back a little bit and talk about like how the whole thing happens,
Yes.
right? So we I want to make sure everybody gets a book, right? So we order before the program. I order enough copies so that each individual gets a book, and then I give it in enough time for them to read before the discussion day, right? And before that time, asking, are people reading? Do they have, do they need more time? That kind of stuff. And everybody knows when we're going to discuss. So they need to finish the book before that. And then we have Q&A. We have Q&A on that day. Usually I would bring Bukola in if she's available, which works really great. And they can ask the questions and or discuss some of the things that, they came across in the book. So in terms of the activity, it's one thing. I think it's really easy for us to read the book and say, this person should have done something different, or I wouldn't have done what this person did. And so the activity that I created is really around characters in the book. So we have lots of different people that come into play in the book, and how their reactions or their actions sort of added to the story. So I have each of these characters, and I put a little bit of what happened in the book with each character, or how they advise you. And then we break people up into like a group of two or threes, and give them a couple of characters and say, okay, let's rewrite this story, right? Let's rewrite this story so that at the end of the day, this person is Bukola is not a victim of human trafficking. So they look at the characters and see what they did, and then they decide, okay, we'll have this person give this different advice, or we have this person react this other way. And so once they had time to discuss that in the little groups, then we come together as a big group, and then they provide what they changed in a story. So that has been very effective and have brought up a lot of discussion.
So now, would you recommend, or who would you recommend this book to?
Well, I think the book works for everybody, Yes, I've been using it with the African immigrant community, and immigrant communities who have a lot of cultural practices that sometimes is sort of outside of the law in the United States.
Yes.
But at the same time, it gives insight to other mainstream people in terms of what's going on in these communities, how people live, and what's normal or not normal, at least in terms of what they see the life to be, and how they can also bring up conversations and ask questions, to make sure we talk about, like, how do you even read between the lines in terms of finding out if somebody might be in danger or need help or in an unsafe situation. So anyone can read this book and start to think a little differently in terms of how I might strike up a conversation or ask a question of someone who, I sort of have a gut feeling that might be going through something like that.
Okay, so I want to ask you guys, do you have any question for Rita? If you do, please go ahead and type your questions if you have questions for Rita. And in the meantime, I think you have another class coming up, right? Or has
Well,
it
we are
started already?
we are in session right now, and we usually have a series of 8 classes, and so we are on tomorrow. Actually, is on Saturdays, and tomorrow is day 6. So we have after tomorrow we have 2 more to go, and then we have a graduation and a big deal, and we have an open house. People can come and celebrate with us.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rita. And we want to thank you all our Periscope viewers. So my free gift today is the book, and I'm giving that book to the person who needs help in Florida. So please contact me via Facebook, and I will be sending you a copy out in Florida. I want to thank you so much for joining us for this special broadcast. If you have a question that you don't want to ask here, I'm Bukola Oriola on Facebook. Please send me private message. I'm Bukola Oriola on Twitter, and I'm Bukola Oriola on Periscope. So follow to get updates on human trafficking, especially focusing on the immigrant community in the United States. And I want to thank Rita again for coming. Do you have any last word for us?
Well, I would just say, I think people should look around for resources when it comes to working with the immigrant community. Look around for resources that can help them sort of identify some of these and make them aware of some of these things, like, if they might be in a bad relationship, an unhealthy or unsafe relationship. And I think your book, Imprisoned, is a great resource that anybody could use, like I said, either in the immigrant community, because it brings out a lot of discussion, or any of the other communities that it might give some insight in terms of how they could reach out and help other people.
Okay, thank you so much, Rita. God bless you.
Thanks
for taking the time out to come here today to talk to us about human trafficking and domestic abuse in the immigrant community. And what Rita has been talking about really is now termed as familiar trafficking, because when it happens in the family, it's familiar trafficking. And it's not only in a spouse relationship, it could be parent and child relationship. So start following me on Periscope, on Facebook, and on Twitter. I'm Bukola Oriola to get more updates on this issue of human trafficking, especially in the immigrant community. And if you have any question, please feel free to contact me via private message. Thank you so much for this time. I hope to talk to you again. God bless you, and bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.